I kept moving and kept going and going and going, and thinking at some point I would be able to start my own brand somehow, some way.
One of the most memorable moments in my career was the last season of New York Fashion Week in the Bryant Park tents. After 20 years of organizing the shows, I was a bag of emotions, knowing this chapter was coming to an end. Luckily, the nicest designer in the business had the final show. Yep, it was Tommy Hilfiger. At the conclusion of his show, Tommy surprised everyone when he came out with a mic in hand and thanked me and Stan Herman for the 2 decades of shows under the tents in Bryant Park. It was the nicest gesture and one that I will never forget. Tommy is beyond nice. In fact, I often think we need a new word for him. This personality trait came in handy on a trip to Hong Kong, where a friendly conversation changed Tommy's life forever. Let's hear about it in part 2 of TH35.
So you didn't go to design school. Where else did you work in New York? Was it true you worked at Jordache Jeans and were fired?
I worked at Jordache Jeans, and they fired me after a month.
Why?
They had one jean that was really their core business. And when I designed a collection of clothes, they said, we don't need a collection. And by the way, we don't need you. So I was really out on the streets, and I worked for a couple of different jeans companies. I started my own company called 20th Century Survival. It didn't survive. I started another company called ClickPoint. We didn't have the financing. I worked at a company in California called Tattoo. That didn't work out because of financing again. And I kept moving and kept going and going and going, and thinking at some point I would be able to start my own brand somehow, some way. And I think I was very fortunate to have met Mohan Rajani.
Well, yeah, we'll get to Mohan in a second, but I read you befriended Perry Ellis. How do you befriend Perry Ellis?
My ClickPoint business was in 1441 Broadway at the time, and Perry's business was in 1441 Broadway. One Sunday, we needed a spool of thread, and we went knocking on doors.
At the neighbor's house.
Went knocking on doors in the building, and Perry and his team were working. So he loaned us thread, and somehow we became friends. He asked me if I would work with him.
Offered you a job, yeah.
He offered me a job, and I was very excited about it. At the same time, I met the people from Calvin, and they offered me a job.
You turned Calvin down too.
And that same week, I met Rajani, and Rajani offered to actually back me.
How did you meet Mohan Rajani?
I met Mohan through, I was traveling to Hong Kong to manufacture, and I met his family in Hong Kong. And when I met his family, they said, you have to meet Mohan. And when I went back to New York, I met Mohan.
And what did you show him that made him say, I'm investing in you, I'm going to be your business partner? I mean,
I just won a design award with A&S, Abraham and Strauss, called the Design Spirit Award with Willie Smith.
Wow, great Willie.
And Alan Gilman, the president of Rajani, had read that in the paper. He contacted me and asked me to meet Mohan. When I met Mohan, immediately we became friends. We just connected. And he said, I'd like to back you, because I want to back a new American designer. And I want, he owned Gloria Vanderbilt at the time.
He was the head of Gloria Vanderbilt Jeans, and he's an Indian textile magnate, essentially, at the beginning. And he's a fabulous man.
Yeah, he's still a very close friend of mine today. So he said, I'd like to back you. And I said, fantastic, I would love that. So I called Perry, called Bob Suslow, who was the president of Calvin at the time, told him I wasn't going to take the job, but I was going to go into competition with them. They laughed.
Could you tell us the kind of money that Mohan put up for you at that time?
He put a few, about $5 million
$5 million.
over a period of 4 or 5 years.
That's a good friend to meet on the way to Hong Kong.